So 6 podcasts in, and I've realized that I haven't done any introduction to any of my podcasts. And since I have them on audio platforms now, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast, I realized that, a little bit of context is necessary. So yeah, if you want audio versions of these podcasts, please head on to those platforms and you'll find it under Jayawaves. On today's podcast / vlogcast, I've got a very special guy named Fahad Farook, who is a corporate trainer and also a compeer. And he has a plethora of knowledge on leadership and, and how to, deal with being in a position of a leader. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. There's a lot of, interesting, valuable information there, and also a bit of fun tidbits here and there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.
Fahad, thanks a lot for stepping in and sitting in with me and having a conversation. Eternally grateful for you taking the time, because it's a difficult thing to do, to sit for 1 hour and talk to somebody. And
have you been through quarantine?
Well. That's true. So yeah, the reason I've been I initially started this podcast is because I thought, like a lot of people forget to think about audio and video quality when it comes to making content online, which is not the most important thing, but the threshold to get good video quality and audio quality is so low that everybody can easily do it with a little bit of effort. That's how I started the podcast. But as I'm speaking to people, I figured out that a lot of people have so many options in Sri Lanka now, apart from their 9-to-5 job, right? And that's what I'm getting. Like all these creative people are making a life for themselves, and most of them are successful, and they don't have to complain about I have a bad boss or I have a shitty work environment. So I've been trying to get into people's minds who do this kinds of thing, and try and figure out what decisions they made throughout this whole existence for them to drive to choose a freelance or like a more self-independent I would say work environment as opposed to a 9-to-5. So far, like with you, that's what I want to start off with. Let's go back all the way to A-levels or school. Where did you like graduate from with A-levels and O-levels, or if that's
with all the interviews I've ever done, nobody's got that far back, man. Like no one. That's whoa. I feel like I need to recline and like I go to unpack my entire childhood. This is terrible.
We'll skim over it.
Well, Machang, the thing is that back when I was in school, I was the opposite of who I am now, man. I'm generally an introverted person.
Okay, wow.
But I am. But there's this thing called being an ambivert, right? Where for work, I just go into this amazing extroverted mode,
right?
Where then I crave the stage and the lights and the people and the programs. Right. I just get off that, man. But the moment I finish that,
just to set the stage for the rest of the conversation, I forgot to introduce. Like, in 30 seconds, what are you and what do you do?
Hey guys, my name's Fahad Farook. I'm a certified transformative coach. I'm also a trainer, compeer, and a speaker.
Yes.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So yeah, continue. I'm sorry, I just needed to get that off the door.
But the moment I get off stage, then I revert back into my little shy, little introvert mode, and I don't know what to say if it's a group of more than 3 people, and I have a set of like little standard questions in my head and interactions in my head. Right. It takes me a while. So back in school, I was that person, and I wanted to be a marine biologist when I grew up.
Oh wow!
And my mother was like, "Are you crazy? Like, what? How are you going to make money in Sri Lanka being a marine biologist?" I was like, I guess. And then I fell into everybody else's track, man. Because back when I was in, so I'm 35 years old now, and 15 years ago, like when I left school, everybody was doing CIMA. And my dad was like, go do CM. I was like, but I don't, like, just do it. And I did it. And that's what life was. But in the meantime, I managed to find a way to rebel against this, this standard management accounting qualification. I worked at a radio station as a newsreader.
Right.
I went in there to be a presenter, but they were like, presenter positions are filled, but we can take you as a newsreader. And I was there for 5 years, even when I finished my CIMA and stuff.
Right.
But then I got suspended from that job.
Right.
For like, yeah. And then I decided, holy shit, what am I going to do?
Like, hold on, let's go back to you. You went and got a job, wanted a job as a presenter, right? Like how, like, apart from, breaking away from the traditional doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant plan, what made you want to, go and become a presenter?
I think, Machang, I always had this small itch inside me,
Right.
to be a bit of a show, because I used to go for elocution classes, and I would love the aspect of speaking and that little show-offy, gassy type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then my friend Gayan, he used to play guitar really well, and I was like, could you teach me to play guitar? And he taught me, because that was also an avenue for me to like sort of perform in a sense, right?
Right.
But that's a different story. So he gave me 3 chords, G, C and E, and I practiced it for a week, and I went back and played it, and I told him, Machang, it doesn't sound the same. And I've been practicing the chords upside down, right?
Oh my
way he wrote it was a disaster. Then I switched to bass, and then we used to jam and stuff like that. But it was always there was this thing inside, like, this doesn't quite sit right. Also, to answer your question, it's in my nature, right? So from small days, it's always very questioning things, like, why is it like this? So I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any magical people in the sky.
Right.
And it was always a constant question, like, why is it always like this? So that questioning nature has always led me to, do we have to do it like this just because, a large portion of the world is doing it? Like, it's not the case, right? There are constantly alternatives available. And I guess I was lucky enough to have opportunity and privilege line up at the right time, because not a lot of people have that, right? They have the question, but their circumstances are such that they need to do the 9 to 5 because they need the money for their family, type of thing.
Right.
So to answer that specific question of yours, it started with a does it have to be this way?
Right.
And constantly looking for doors to go through that.
Okay, so presenter, you got suspended. Do you want to talk about that? Because I really want to dig into it, but I don't know how legally bound you are to not talk about it.
I don't think I'm legally bound. I think it was. I'm just wondering, should I talk about it? I have no issues talking about it, but in my line of work, would it like?
Okay, let's not mention any stations or.
Well, anybody who knows me knows where I work, so.
Okay, that's a problem. Yeah, it's at your discretion.
No, but I'll tell you the gist. Like, I took a news story.
Okay.
And the story that I took was I checked out all my sources as we do before we take the story. But then the person I took the story about, and the management, there was some sort of like how could you do this? This is like, and I was like, but it's verified, and I don't know. The area is pretty gray.
Okay.
But
so,
yeah.
It's that kind of thing. Okay, understood. Yeah. Let's move on. But okay, moving from that job. Right, so you switched on. What happened? Like, where did you go after that?
Man, after I got suspended from that job, I had my CIMA qualification, but everybody else who was doing CIMA was also interning at an audit firm for 2,000 rupees a month, type of thing. And I wasn't doing that, right? And I was like, happily at my radio job. And then after I got suspended, which was realistically fired, even though they called it suspended. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this corporate thing, and I went for interview. So back then I had long hair, man.
Right.
I had long hair, and this dude who's going into places like, I think I went to several of Sri Lanka's conglomerates for interviews, and all of them were like, so what did you do for the past 4 years? I was like, I was a radio station. And like, okay, because all the other applicants had like all this, like a fuck ton. Can we say bad words?
Yeah, you can.
Not that it's a bad word. They had like a fuck ton of experience, and I didn't have that. I just had like, I used to be a newsreader. I read news for 4 hours a day. And they're like, yeah, we'll call you. And nobody ever called, right?
Right.
Because I didn't have that. But realistically, at the back of my mind, I was panicking, but I was happy. Panic was like, holy shit, but like, what am I going to do? But there was also happiness in the sense of these places are rejecting me. Maybe there's something else there. But panic was high, I'm not going to lie.
Right.
And then I was kind enough to be hired by an advertising agency's publications arm. I sucked at that job. I was really bad. But I loved the people there.
Right.
That place has like great memories, I can tell you where. So it was at ImageWise, which is a part of Triad.
Okay.
It was really nice working there. And like there are lots of stories in terms of how I was so bad at clients. So I was servicing clients there, right?
Right.
And I was so bad at it. Like there were like some. I remember one time a client was yelling at me for something we hadn't done, and I did the golden not to do, which is, but I hung up the phone on the client.
Oh.
And instantly I knew, right? This is like a dumb thing to do. But I did it, and I panicked then, and I ran into my boss's room. I was like, boss, the phone got. She's like, don't bloody lie, and I know you cut the line. But and I was like, no, what's that? So it was a really great environment.
He must have been a cool boss.
Yeah, she was a great boss. She's still pretty chill.
Okay.
Her name is Saruchi, a really, really understanding boss. She was like, what did you do now? Like,
okay.
no, it was not like so yeah. So then I was there for a year, and then I knew, man, that client servicing was not my thing. It just wasn't. And then, man, as luck would have it.
How old were you
there
at
was
this point? I'm sorry, interrupting.
I was 25, I think.
Okay.
25, 26.
Right.
And like looking back now, if I could tell my younger self, like, holy shit, man, don't panic. You don't have to have all of that shit sorted out. But back then it's like peer pressure, and you see your friends who are like working all these places, and you like, that stupid type of thinking that you go through.
Yeah.
I saw this wonderful ad in newspapers, and it just blew my mind, right? It said, if companies were cars, we look under the hood, we tune their engines, we check tire pressure, and we make sure that they're running smoothly. And I didn't know what this place did. Yeah. And I was like, I need to apply here. This sounds amazing.
Oh, wow.
They're like, what is this place? And I applied, and my parents are like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong? Why do you keep gravitating towards this, like, non-mainstream, not a big job? Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. And I went, and that place was a corporate training company.
Okay.
And that's when I began my journey as a corporate trainer at that place.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Okay. Before we get into that, there's another thing that I really want to speak to you about, because chronologically speaking here. So when I have to speak in English, right? So this is something that I'm so envious of people who who create content online, right? When you guys, I have to try extremely hard with my skills as a videographer to make me very pronounced in my frame, right? But for people who can speak well, like yourself, it comes out obviously with years of training. You guys have that presence, right? So for me, when I was growing up, I thought in school, I went to St. Joseph's College, if you spoke proper English, it means you're like you're a wannabe, right? So because of that, I slurred we were all slurring, and the only people who could understand each other were ourselves. And as soon as I had to go and speak to my one of my dad's friends, they're always like, sorry, what are you saying? Stuff like that. So yours, like, you speak pretty clearly, right? Is that something that you had to, like, you naturally had because you were in radio stations and you were how did that skill come about? Like, I know it's like a pretty mundane question, but like, I feel like that's a lot of problems that are there on people who are creating online content at the moment, right? They just I have the problem all the time. I do, and I realize that now when I speak in front of a camera, my accent is completely different to how I normally speak. So how did that come about, like, for you?
So similar experience for me in school, because I went to a school that was formerly known as St. Joseph's College South,
Okay. Wow.
currently known as St. Peter's College. So that it's kind of weird, right? You know how people say that people put on an accent when they speak? This is not how I would normally speak if I was having a conversation.
Right.
Example, this is how I normally speak if I have a conversation, right?
Right.
But if I was doing a training or a program, or if I'm doing something, then each word is like a grain of rice for me, right?
Right.
So I take each word and I pronounce each word like a grain of rice.
Right.
So this does a couple of things, because my brain is working fast to generate what I'm going to say, but my mouth, if I keep up at that speed, then more mistakes are going to come out. It's just going to be a continuous slur of whatever. So I make it a point, right? Doesn't matter how fast this is working, it's going to get processed, and each thing is going to take a significant importance by itself.
Okay.
So how I normally say it is, each thing is going to take a significant importance by itself, right?
Right.
But if I'm on video or something, so I say each thing is going to take a significant importance by itself.
Right.
Now, when someone's listening to it, that entire thing sounds like a bit of a performance, right? Because each word is like given a duty stage and it's presented.
Right.
So it's a conscious effort. And it's two different personalities, right? So if someone is here to hear you speak,
Right.
so in my line of work as a compeer or a trainer or developing content online, they are not here to look at my backgrounds, right? Maybe it adds a bit of value, but they're here to listen to the words. So that means we need to move away from this idea of, hey, my idea is really great, I'm just going to translate this idea to you, take the idea at value. The listener doesn't see it like that, because it's what they see and hear. So then, in order for your idea to be, presented well, slow the entire thing down. Slow it down, and each thing you say has to be thought out.
Right.
And that gives you space to enunciate and have an impact word and, change your tone and stuff like that.
Right.
It gives you more time.
Right. Interesting. So this is like something that you probably worked on for years, I'm assuming. This is
Yeah, it didn't come naturally. Well,
right. Okay. Interesting. So you have a switch in your brain that you like switch on and off whenever, depending on where you're presenting.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
So like whenever we need to go to a place, and there are some Sri Lankan hotels and stuff that when they see that you're local, the amount of treatment they give you is a bit less.
Yeah.
So then my friend Nalina always says, he says in Sinhala, "Umbe Shuang එක දාලා කතා කරපන්කෝ." So then I was like, excuse me. And then they're like, okay. So I turn the Shuang on.
Yeah. I mean, okay, just to go off a tangent here, like when my parents watch my videos, I get a little self-conscious because they know how I normally speak. Does that happen to you when you're like, when some of your close friends see your videos? And I hate it when they watch my videos in front of me, because I know that's not how I speak, and they're gonna it's like pick on me.
I think, see, I've been doing this job for about 10 years now.
Right.
And I think people have sort of become desensitized. They know that, okay, if Fahad's doing a thing, then this is how he talks.
Right.
If he's like this. It's not even an accent. It's just, I just become more, the words are more polished.
Right,
A little bit
right,
more
right.
polished, yeah.
Yeah, I think over the years, I've initially I thought it was an accent, but now I'm like, okay, that's proper English. You just speak proper English. It's not really, it's like there's a difference when you speak, or we all speak proper English, as to opposed to like an American or a British person speaking. That there's a complete difference right there. So now I accepted that, I need to start speaking properly, because other people need to understand me, especially when I go abroad, and then I have to speak to some guy in a shop or something. They're constantly like, what? It's not because, it's just because I'm slurring, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm really, whenever I see your content or people who are, really good, I'm so envious, because it comes difficult to me. But
the trick, man, is just, the simple thing you can do is to slow down how you speak.
Right.
Just consciously slow it down. Then each word has a value. And
Okay.
then that's the starting point. Can I
Right.
speak slower?
Right. Interesting. Okay. So, corporate trading. Okay. Now, this is something where I've had a lot of sticks with, not with the corporate trading, about the corporate in Sri Lanka, right? So, there is this statistic that a lot of people say that they leave their jobs not because their job is hard, but because they have bad managers, right? How
Is that a statistic or is that a wonderful internet quote?
No, I think it's a statistic because I was looking this up. I can't remember. I was having this conversation because I am also working for an American company that's here in Sri Lanka, and I'm looking at this because I'm in a privileged place to be a manager to other people. So I've been looking at this situation, and then I've been researching why people. And then there's been a number of studies, but I can't remember. But I realized that I should probably put it up in the edit saying, okay, this is the statistic. But let's say it's a statistic. Do you think that that's true, that quote? Like, people leave their jobs because of their...
Yes. But that is... it's two sides, Macha. So, like, first off, it's a wonderful line to hear. Right? Like, it's like one of those sexy, catchy lines. Like, did you know that...
Right.
And then people like... Everybody at some point in time has had a bad experience with their manager. So immediately when you hear that, you latch onto it, right? Yeah, my manager's a bloody asshole. No wonder.
Right.
If I had a better opportunity, I would leave. But imagine this, right? Imagine your boss is a real dick, but you really need the money. You would stay, right? Or your boss is a real dick, but you're insensitive to it. You would stay, right? Or your boss is a real dick, but you're there to get the experience, so you would stay. Right. So I think there are lots of circumstances. Again, I don't know about the statistics, but I think shitty managers are probably one of the primary reasons for people to leave.
Right.
And over this period of working from home, I've had a lot of my friends, a considerable number of friends, who've messaged me and said, hey dude, I want to leave my job, what do you think? And I'm like, why? My manager doesn't understand the boundaries of working from home. They think I should be available 24/7 type of various things, and they're so demanding, and even at work they're making my life a living hell and stuff like that, right? So it's a real thing.
Right.
However, as with anything, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Your manager being a shitty manager doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are so many other variables.
Right.
And I think that we need to look at all of these variables. Maybe one of these variables is so overpowering that you have to leave, but it's not the case. But coming back to your question, we are never taught how to be leaders or managers.
Right.
Right. If you look at a manager in a traditional Sri Lankan organization, they were performing really well at their role, right? And then they get promoted to a role of taking care of people who are performing their old role. So let's a very simple example: you're a sales executive or whatever, and then you become a sales manager, right? And then you have other sales executives or sales reps under you. This person now assumes that being a manager is doing their previous role at an elevated level, when that's not the case.
Right.
The amount of skills that you need, the scope of skills that you need are different, because now you're managing people, and you need to get them to do their job. There's more enablement required, more empowering required.
Right.
But now this person thinks, holy shit, I got promoted, I need to outperform my target, I need to show these people who's boss, so let me just cut them down and do this thing better.
Right.
So the organization has failed because they haven't understood what it needs to be a manager. Our entire education system has failed. This person's parents have failed. And suddenly there is this dude who was never taught what it needs to be a leader, what it takes to be a manager. They've only been taught you are evaluated on your performance. You got to this position because of your performance. And then this person is like, so same formula, right?
Right.
So, and then... that just trickles down.
So my mind is like exploding in my head because I joined this company 5 years ago at the bottom, just like with everybody else, and step by step, every year it has changed into. And I in the beginning I was in that mentality. Okay, you know what? Now that I'm here, I need to double up my performance, and it was not about the people, right? So that's crazy. Is this like a worldwide problem? Because or is this like more Sri Lanka based?
I think it's a global problem in the sense, like, when did you have a leadership class in school? Like, have you heard of any? I mean, maybe there are countries where they have leadership as part of the curriculum.
Right.
When did you have people management away from theory, right? So even in Latvia, there's people management as theories,
Right.
but never the emotional aspect of managing another human being.
Right.
So if there are modules that discuss those things, then yes, people are being educated, but it never happens.
Okay.
It only happens after they come to this stage as adults, when these bottles are full, their opinions are formed, their personalities are crafted and created, and then some dude comes from nowhere, is like, hey, corporate training time, let's talk about leadership. And then this dude is like, the fuck you on about, dude?
Yeah, I
Type
think
of thing.
yeah, that's true. That's the leadership only leadership course that I've ever taken is when I was in my last year as doing my BBA. So that's like when I'm like well past 24, 25, right? I've never had anything to do with leadership in a structured, like, in a way, other than okay, you're in a hockey team or you're in a basketball team, where it's passively addressed, right? So that's true. I've never had a situation where somebody's spoken to me about it.
Another problem is that like, somebody who's been a part of a sports team has a slightly higher advantage over somebody who was not when they were a kid.
Right.
However, that system is also kind of flawed because you tend to look at it as let's say, for example, someone's the captain of like their cricket team or rugby team or whatever. You get a little bit of sense of people management, but there's also pressure on you to, because you're somewhat peers, right? And there's pressure on you to perform, and you also have to do things, and like it's a slight advantage, but it's not ever the same. Like the captain also wants to be man of the match or whatever, right?
That's true.
But
There's
when
a
you come to
performance scale there as well, right? Like,
yeah.
That's so true.
So it's like, because the performance scale is similar to the performance scale of the other players. But when you become a corporate leader, that dynamic changes, and there's no scale for us to distinguish.
Interesting. That's okay. I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of company or corporate cultures in this country, right? Now I can draw experience on my end because I've worked with this one American company for the past years, and we have gone through a couple of leaders in our office simply because they try to make an autocratic environment. Whereas the company was, since it was an American company, the American counterparts, they came with a very loose culture where, people did their own thing. And, the company grew because of that. And then, certain traditional managers were hired, and then things went to shit. And then it ended up, the entire company rebelling against this person, and the culture prevailed. So, how important, in your opinion, is this corporate culture, right? Which is a big ha-ho right now, right? Everybody, all the companies want to say we have like a really good culture and all of this. How much of it is actually true? Like when people say we have, a very, very, free culture or an open culture, how much do the companies in Sri Lanka actually practice what they preach in that sense, in your opinion, in Sri Lanka?
Before we get to that, we need to ask the question of how bosses and employees perceive culture.
Okay.
Have you heard people say, I am stuck in traffic?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's wrong.
Right.
You're not stuck in traffic. You are traffic.
Interesting.
Like, if you are in your car and you're surrounded by other cars, the way we think about it is like, hey, look at all this traffic.
Right.
But that is wrong, right?
Right.
You are part of it, and everybody's part. So I am traffic. I am creating this traffic.
Right.
That's a perspective change we need to make in terms of how we look at culture. So when someone says, I don't like the culture there, they are removing themselves from their contribution to this culture, good or bad, right? Say your company has like a shitty gossipy culture, and you're telling one of your friends, hey, I don't like how this company has a gossipy culture. What the fuck are you doing? You are traffic, right? So the Homo sapien is such that it's like that classic thing, right? Who wants change? Everybody raises their hand. Who wants to change? Not one person raises their hand, right? So now when it comes to culture, the bosses usually might want a better culture, and the way they say it is, hey, we want a better culture, a more open culture. But rarely does it turn around and say, hey, this is what I am doing to ensure this culture. So that and I've worked with plenty of organizations in Sri Lanka who do that, right? This is what I'm doing for this culture. So the first thing I think is that we need to change how we look at it in terms of what is my even tiniest contribution to this. If you're gossiping to a friend outside work saying, hey, this culture is like, so you are part of that culture, because to your friend, you're a person who works there and you're saying things, you're propagating that idea. So there are organizations who have really, really great cultures in terms of what they stand for. And the biggest example I see in how they do that is, or the biggest indicator is, that everybody across the line lives it. Right? So there isn't a boss who says, hey, we have a really open culture, then goes and closes himself up in like a sealed out cubicle and you have to make an appointment to see him, right? It doesn't work that way. So culture is something that we all are currently doing, and that idea needs to come into your head. So I don't like the culture here can only be applied to someone who comes on their first day, sits down, sees something, and then decides in their head, I don't like the culture. But if you've been there for at least a week or two, then sorry to say, man, you're part of it. You are traffic.
Wow, I've never looked at it like that. This is brilliant. So let's go back to the whole you are traffic, right? Like, let's say, okay, me, I'm in a management position, okay? How do I figure out what's wrong if there is an performance gap, okay, in an organization or in your team? How do I figure that out?
So the easiest example, the easiest indicator is, before you do that, figure out the context of an organization, right? Say a person who is managing, let's say somebody who's managing a team of street cleaners, right? They're doing sort of manual labor. So their manager has a different sort of scope, right? So it's not a leadership philosophy of one thing fits all. So first figure out what's your expectation as a manager or leader within your organization. Like, what's the scope? What do you need? What is this end goal that you're driving towards? Within that, you need to figure out what's your technical role and what's your leadership role, right? So that line has to be as clear as it can be. It's never going to be cut and dry. It's always a blurry line. But in terms of my performance, what is required? In terms of me as a leader, what is required? From then on, you need to figure out where are the gaps within those roles. So you can't be like a great leader but doing a shitty ass job in your personal deliverables, right? Then you'll fail. So we use this word performance gap really largely, right? So to go back to an example of organizations that commonly fail is, there's a person in a leadership position. They say, hey, your leadership sucks, but their bonuses and their salaries and their increments are all calculated based on their performance. There is no weight or value given towards the leader. So this guy has like zero incentive financially or promotion wise to be a better leader, because like, dude, I'm not judged on any of these things. So it's always best to figure out the context of the organization. Like, what do you need from me as a performer, as a leader? Then comes the next stage, right? So based on these things you need from me, what are the gaps? And these gaps they have to be a mix of subjective and objective, right? You ask someone, can your boss be better? 90% of people will say, of course they could be better, right? You ask someone, do you want more pay? 90% of people, of course I want more pay. So if you open the question like that, it's always, yes, you could be better, right? But if you figure out, this is what the organization needs from me, these are the behaviors or aspects or traits or little verticals I need to be focusing on, then you can ask targeted questions, right? You could ask your subordinate, hey, in terms of when you have a problem and you feel the need to reach out to someone, do you see me as that type of person, and what's blocking it? So that's a specific question that's better than, hey, do you think I could be a better leader? So it's always, in order to change, you need to go down to that granular level, right? Because change is not an idea, it's an action. And we need to figure out what those actions are. So to answer your question in terms of, if I see a performance gap, I would like, what is measuring their performance? What's the end goal your company needs from you? What do you mean by gap? Like, what are the specific verticals the gap exists in? And what do you mean by, improving it? Like, where are you now? Where do you need to go type of thing?
A lot of people lost their jobs over the past couple of months, right? And then there's going to be influx where people are going to be needed again after, the economy stabilizes. How can someone go about, learn from the fact that they've been laid off, and then they be working in a volatile industry or whatever that situation is? How should people prepare themselves to, apply for new jobs, or even if that's a thought that if you have any opinions on that, what should these guys do if you've lost your job right now, right? Because it does affect your mental health as well, to a certain degree. What would they do next?
First off, man, I don't think that for a person stuck in a position or of them losing their job, any amount of inspirational or motivational talks are not going to help that person, because you're in a position where salli nae, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think the biggest learning that we all need to take is that if your job was your only source of income, then you're destined to be fucked, right? Because if this money is the only money coming in, then when it goes, then as most people are discovering now, they're gone. This is the fault in how we think, because from smaller days it's been study hard, get a good job, and perform, and that'll be there forever. But with how the world operates, right, we need to diversify our income streams. And I don't mean this type of other options available where, like, I'll do some forex and I'll get some Bitcoin, and I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about things that you can do that your effort will yield an actual result. I'm not shitting on those things because I don't know enough about those things, but if you have a diverse set of skills, then maybe you can have a side gig where you're designing, doing some graphic design. Maybe you can have a side gig where you're doing like voicings, or maybe you can have a side gig where you're doing tuition, or maybe you're uploading content on YouTube. What I'm saying is the opportunities to earn money are no longer limited to going to a person and saying, give me a job. It is now open to a scope of, hey, what's my skill set? Can I find a place where these skills are needed? Right? So for example, if you're really great at talking, like, coming up with stupid shit in your head and making people laugh, then there's a market for that. Right? You don't need to find somebody paying you for that. So the idea is, don't wait until your 9-to-5 needs you again. That's good, but spend time on diversifying your income streams. But it can't be like I put in an effort of 10 and I'm getting a return of 1. I'm working really hard. You got to be smart about it, right? So you're putting an effort of 2 to get a return of 1 maybe in the short term, or you're putting an effort of 3. So it's smaller efforts but diversifying. So for me, until I do this now, like, I dabbled in portrait photography, wedding photography. I did a couple of weddings. Then I tried my hand at playing in a band. Then I tried to get into conceptualizing, like, parties and stuff with a friend of mine a long time ago. Then this speaking, so it's always diversified. So even now, as I'm busy, doing training stuff, I haven't stopped with my comparing. That's also a parallel avenue for me. I haven't stopped with the whole voicing stuff. I haven't stopped with the online content, because it's always diversified. Say one channel fails, there has to be other channels that generate money for you. So the biggest thing that people are now looking for is, as they've come out of one 9-to-5 to look for another space that will give them that consistent stream of revenue,
Right.
which probably is a bad thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for another consistent. So right now, I think they should look at options of diversifying. How broad can you go? How can you fan out as much as possible? How can you acquire little skills that are needed? That's not going to take a lot of your time. And ultimately, how can you revert to a point of passive income? So when you and YouTube gets monetized, right, and you upload your video, then that's a stream of passive income, right? Because, people watch, you get money type of thing.
Right.
But it's all about moving away from, let me get this job, I'm getting X amount of rupees per month, I can save this month, I'm sorted. No, that thinking needs to change.
Right. Interesting. I wish I could have this conversation like 3-4 hours, but there's so much here. But anyway, just to wrap things off, right? I want to go back to those massive posters in the background. Where did the love for that? And you have some really nice, like toys. Like I'm not gonna call it toys in the sense, not like toys, but like man's toys. There.
This is an indication of the scale, right? This is my hand.
Yeah, I can imagine. Where did that start?
Oh man, I think I've in 1991, my dad went to Singapore.
The year I was born.
And he came back with I was 6. He came back with 3 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics.
Right. Okay.
And back then TMNT wasn't big in Sri Lanka, and these were like, I think they were second editions or whatever, and I still have them.
Oh wow.
And these comics it just captured me, man. And I was like, whoa, what's this world? And then as I was growing up, there was Voltron, there was Silverhawks, and of course Thundercats. And these were things that, I'll try to show you, there's this other one. So, there's a Ninja Turtles poster there as well.
Okay, yeah.
So these were things that sort of really captured my my imagination as a kid, because I was like, hey, because I would pretend to be all of these things.
Right.
And then I discovered Batman, and it immediately resonated with me because he was just a regular dude, filthy rich, but who had all these little gadgematics, and it was just his wits and his money that managed to do all these things. And I just disappeared into that world, man.
Right.
I mean, and something that I really live by is I don't know if you guys can see this, but those can you see that?
Oh, okay, nice. Others.
So Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yeah. And the moment I saw that series, I was like, holy shit.
Right.
This is I have no words. And all these the elements of earth, fire, wind and water, like even when I speak, I use something called the 4 elements, right?
I saw that.
Yeah. Earth is grounded, fire is like all of these things. And for me, the world of comics is an escape. Right? Which is why I was really pissed off with how Endgame ended.
Oh, okay.
Because I watch comics to get away from how sad life is. Like, I don't want 2 of my favorites, spoiler alert, dying. Right? And one of them unceremoniously dying. Like, Natasha Romanoff is like probably like one of my favorites. Mostly because of Scarlett Johansson. But like so unceremonious, like an insult, right? Yeah. And then I was like, I'm just pissed off with this. Comics for me is like an escape.
Tough for you at that time, because for me it was just, I wasn't that much of a fanboy, but like I can imagine what you were going through.
It's like, what the hell, man? It's like not cool.
Right. I'm glad you showed me your tattoos, because I've spoken to everybody, like this is everybody about tattoos as well, and I because I didn't see a visible tattoo on it. I didn't. So you have.
So I have.
How many tattoos?
3 tattoos.
Right.
I have 3.
Okay.
There's one. The first one I got. It's an owl on my back.
Okay.
And inside the owl, there's like planets and.
What's the scale of the owl? If you don't mind. Is it?
So it's
bigger than your palm?
It's bigger than my palm.
Right. Okay.
It's about, I don't know how to.
Is it from shoulder to shoulder?
No, it's from about here to, well, I don't know if you can see, like, showing the scale on this is really hard.
Right, yeah.
But it's about that big.
Okay, interesting.
Then on my leg, I have a tattoo of a lynx because that's what Fahad means.
Oh, okay.
In is it Persian or some language? Fahad means lynx, which is a wild cat.
Right.
So I have that tattoo. So yeah, the next one will probably be some sort of astronaut one or a Batman and Joker one. I haven't decided.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to. I mean, I have one tattoo on my hand, and I've always wanted to get tattoos, but I keep saying this in every podcast. It hurts so much. I got it in 2012, and I want to have a sleeve. Do you have a high tolerance for pain? Because that's the thing that scares me the most. Like, are you used to it? Like,
well, it depends on where you get it, right? So if you get a tattoo on a really fleshy part, the pain is much less than a bone part.
Yeah, I've heard that too, but still, it's so scary.
But you've gotten it here, right?
Yeah, it's here.
That's supremely sensitive area.
Oh, really?
Right? Like, you know.
Okay. Yeah. I need to. So yeah. Okay. Would you recommend any tattoo artist in Sri Lanka? Who would you recommend? Who would you go to?
Oh, Demo.
Right,
I would recommend
right,
Demo. No doubt.
He's a little hard to get.
I would recommend
I think he's flying in and out constantly as well.
Yeah, but Demo is really hard to get. But from Demo's, like his craft mastery and the craft are like nobody else I've seen.
Interesting.
Not that I've seen like tons of them, but you know, Demo is like.
So are you planning on like? What's your philosophy with tattoos? Do you want to get more? Or
Of course. Like, you know, tattoos are a way of reminding me of things that I love.
Right.
So like, you know, every time I see my hand, I'm reminded of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I do stupid shit, right? Like when I'm feeling really sick, I like do childlike shit. Okay, I'm gonna press the button. That's what. It's like really dumbass 8-year-old shit that I do, but yeah, it helps.
Dude, I mean, this has been an interesting conversation. I try to, put in a lot of questions that I have for myself, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to, as at least the few or the 90 to the 150 people that watch this, it's gonna, because my channel isn't that big as yet. But I'm great.
That's one of the things that I think that people need to change in how they do content, right? I mean, imagine you were in school and somebody told you, hey, there are going to be 100 people who will actively listen to what you're going to say. Like, fuck, really? 100? Oh my, that's amazing. But now we get so desensitized because we see all these people who have like thousands and millions of views and we disregard this 100. But man, that's still a big ass number, dude. That's like,
I remember,
and it's how I look at it. Like,
I remember having to, like, I used to be a metal band, right? I had dreadlocks and all the works, and we would get excited when there's 250 people at an underground gig.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's perspective, and yeah, you have like such a good point there with the whole numbers thing. But yeah, man, I'm eternally grateful for you stepping and have a conversation, and I'm sure.
My pleasure, brother. I had a great time. This has been one of the most diverse chats I've had because we went across so many areas, and it was like, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'm glad.